Hello, my friend. This is Heather. This is another episode of the Back to Me podcast. And this, of course, as you know, is where we get to talk to some amazing human beings. And I don't know about you guys, but I always come out with something. I always learn something. I always have a moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, no way. So I hope you're enjoying them, and I hope you're getting the same thing. And if you are, send me a message, for God's sakes, just so that I know you're out there. But yes, here we are. So it is another episode, and today we are talking with Steph Pellish from Thriving Through Motherhood, which sounds like a challenge, Steph. That sounds like a challenge. Are you saying that people don't thrive through motherhood?
That is exactly what I am saying. Yes. But that is actually a realistic goal for moms, and I don't believe that people understand that it's a real thing. I think we have to like survive through it. And
Oh
so
yeah,
let's
that's a
stop at
huge.
survival and really bring more. My goal is to bring joy, love, and connection into homes through the moms.
That's like a huge shift of thinking too, right? Like surviving motherhood to actually enjoying it
Yeah.
and and having a good time. How I probably could guess the answer, but how did you start this business practice thing that you're doing?
So, a little background on me is I am the oldest of four kids, and the oldest of all of my cousins. Grew up babysitting, knew I wanted to work with kids, knew I didn't want to be a teacher. My mom was a teacher, and I just knew that wasn't quite the right fit. Um, Kind of fell into occupational therapy. Someone said, I play with kids all day. And I was like, you do what? You play with kids. Whatever you do, that's what I'm going to do. And became an occupational therapist, started working in early intervention, which in Pennsylvania, where I am, is birth to 3 years old. And, I've been around kids my entire life. And then I had a baby.
Whoa.
And having a baby is very different than being around babies. And I I knew I was struggling. I knew I was having a hard time bonding with her and just figuring things out. But I also knew I was doing all of the things that I was supposed to be doing. And then we had our second baby, and things got easier because I already did this. I've done this once before. We've got two, let's go. Then we had a third,
Whoa.
and a lot of life happened after my third. Um, I still wanted one more. My husband wasn't quite on board for one more. And so there was a lot of argument, a lot of resentment in there. We ended up in 2019 deciding to have another baby. I got pregnant, had a baby in January of 2020. And
Great
yeah,
time to have a baby.
um, the baby came and the whole world shut down. And like happened in a lot of houses, a lot of our issues became very highlighted in our home. And we had a lot of problems. And so I struggled a lot in 2020. And through that struggle, through finding help for myself, right before I had my fourth, I knew that I didn't want to stay in early intervention. I knew I wanted to look for something new, but I wasn't quite sure what that was. And so my journey over the last couple of years of healing myself, finding more joy, love, and connection inside of my home, creating a better marriage with my husband, creating better relationship with my kids, has led me to really focus on how important it is for moms to do that work. Because when the moms do that work, that's when everybody else in the family thrives. And
Right.
two things there was, one, I was doing this work in early intervention. It's a parent coaching model. And so the moms who were really invested and on board, I saw the most improvements in their kids. And the other piece too of it was, inside of my own home, the happier I got, the better I felt, just the more peace came in my house, which was really nice. And so I kind of put all of that together and started coaching moms, started working with more moms one on one, sometimes in group settings too. I have groups kind of off and on throughout the year, but I love the one on one coaching. I love working with moms because I just know what an impact it makes on the whole family.
It's so true, right? No matter, I've traveled a lot, no matter where you go, when mom's not happy, there's problems in the house, right?
There's this saying of if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And everybody's heard that saying, but nobody's looking at the other side of it. Well, how do we support mom so that she's happy, so that the whole family is then happy? Right?
And
Like we just kind of put this burden on mom, like, well, if mama ain't happy, well, ain't nobody happy. That's a huge burden.
right?
When we can shift that and look at like, oh, well, how do I get myself happier? How do I like feel empowered about it
Yeah.
so that I'm looking to help?
And for moms to take some of that responsibility to recognize they don't have to be suffering, you don't have to suffer. You, there's no martyrdom required for moms. It's not in the contract.
Yeah, but I think there are also a lot of like well-meaning people. I know I said after my third child, I really struggled and I got a lot of unhelpful feedback when I would tell somebody I was struggling. I got a lot of, "Oh, but you're doing such a great job," or, "Oh, that's just the way it is," or, "Oh, you know, like look at you go, like a lot of this super mom, you're a great mom, you're a super mom, you're doing all of the things." And so that was really confusing to me because inside I felt like there was so much chaos, and at home there was a lot of chaos. I was not connecting with my kids. I was sometimes connecting with my husband, but it didn't always feel good. And so then when people outside were like, "You're doing such a great job," I was like, they don't know what's really going on because there wasn't that consistency.
Well, and also I think sometimes well-meaning people, they don't, well, first there's the view from the outside always looks different, right?
Yes.
And then there's I don't actually want to know your problems because I have
Right.
my own.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you
If
just,
I tell you you're fine, we don't have to talk about our problems. And I don't need to take on your stuff because I got enough of my own stuff going on.
exactly.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
so interesting that you were because I'm the oldest of four and I'm the oldest cousin, and I was the exact opposite. I don't want to be anywhere near kids. It's like, yeah, I've had enough. I'm good. I'm golden.
There were days where I thought, man, I really want another baby. I want more kids. Aren't there enough kids in my life? Like, and again, like that disconnect of I was so overwhelmed by everything I already had to do. And that's what my husband was seeing too. He was seeing the overwhelm that I had, that he had, that we had as a family. But yet, intuitively, I knew that there was another baby coming.
Right.
I just didn't trust it a whole lot. I let the other people outside of me tell me that, you know, I was feeling so overwhelmed. Everyone else was giving me advice. I didn't need advice. I needed to get quiet and to listen to myself.
And how did you find a way to shift into that? Like how to shift into that this isn't the way it has to be? Like
Yeah.
what was your shift?
So I'm one of those, I love to learn and I love all of if it says personal growth, self-help, psychology, I want to know how people think. I want to know how I think. So from the time I was a teenager, I've been reading and learning and going to conferences, listening to all of the podcasts. And I think 2020 really put into perspective for me. It kind of was like, oh, all of those things were getting me ready for this moment so that now that I really recognize that I need it, because I also felt like, well, it's good enough. I'm fine. I'm not that bad. I don't need to go to therapy. I don't need a coach. I can keep figuring it out on my own. to the point where I couldn't.
Right.
And finally asking for that help and needing that help made me realize how much it would have helped had I asked for it before, when I was struggling but thought I was okay. And so for me, a lot of it was I found a coach, I found a therapist, I changed my lifestyle. I stopped giving so much energy to feeling that overwhelm, feeling that chaos. And on paper, and when I say it, it sounds easy. Oh, I stopped giving it energy. But in reality, it was a lot of practice. It was a lot of processing. It was a lot of coming back to my therapist, coming back to my coach, and having the exact same conversations over and over again. And me saying, why haven't I figured this out yet? Why did I do it again this way? And so it's a practice. And that's what I talk to my moms now about. Like, it's a practice. We can know something, but until we really practice it over and over again, until we don't even have to think about it, we have to give ourselves grace. And learning to give myself grace was huge for me.
Right. And it's
Very
true.
critical of
Yeah.
myself.
It's very, like, we know lots of things because we're
Mhm.
very smart people.
Yes,
We know, but we don't know.
we have to
And
embody it.
yeah. And there's a coach that a podcast I listen to, and he always says, you know what a broken leg is, and you can imagine what it feels like, but you don't know until it happens to you.
Yeah, that's
So, right?
it's funny because that's how I describe my motherhood journey. I knew what it was going to be like to become a mom, and then I had a baby.
And then
And
you really knew.
you can't know emotionally what it's going to be like to have a baby. And every baby, every person, it's different. So even if I tell you about my experience becoming a mom, it's very different from the next person's experience becoming a mom. And I was one of my first friends that had a baby too. And, I've always been very open about my experiences, and sometimes a little too much. But I just remember one of my girlfriends saying, why didn't anybody tell me? And I said, I did. I
Yeah.
did. But you didn't know because you didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. I can tell you lots of things, but until you experience it, you can't really know. And it's so true. And it is so true. I've talked to a mom recently. She's got a podcast, Moms Without Capes,
Mhm.
trying to stop the you don't have to be the superhero kind of idea. And there is, like, all the moms will come in with what they think moms should be, what their moms were, what their exposure to what momhood is, all the things that they tell you if you go to the mom and baby shows and you watch TV. Like, there's all these messaging on what moms should be and look like and do and be fabulous, and then you're
Yeah.
not feeling it. But and I mean, good for you for sharing it, because some people won't share the crap that's happening to them because they're like, there's something wrong with me,
Yeah.
obviously. But also because we often think that, and I don't know if this is true of men, maybe it is. I'll have to ask my husband. But we often think we can just handle it. We can handle it. We know what we're doing. Let's just get it done. Because that's what
Yeah.
that's what women do. We just go
Right.
and we get it done. We
That's
don't.
what we've been, I say trained to do, but that's what society tells us, that moms, like, who do you call when you need help? You call a mom. Who do you look for? A mom, because moms know all things. And while we do know a lot of things, we also have a lot of things already on our plate. And we forget that we can ask other moms for support. And I think, I just want to go back to one of the things that you said too, but like,
Hmm.
I think figuring out, kind of turning off the noise on the outside of what all of social media and Pinterest and all of these moms are saying motherhood should look like. That's really what helped me, was like, stop looking outside and look inside and figure out, what does it look like for me to be a good mom? what does it feel like for me to be a good mom? Because again, same thing, you don't know what it's like for me, and I don't know what it's like for you to be on our own journeys. And so I had to really figure out, like, who am I as a mom, as a wife, but as a whole and complete person outside of all of those roles. And that was one of the biggest steps for me to figure out how to keep going forward and stop listening to what everybody else said motherhood should look like.
And I think moms, especially, forget that they are a whole and complete person.
Yeah.
And your life is not defined by, like, yeah, you love them. And I know that, they always talk about moms will do epic things for their children, but you are still a separate individual.
You are, but they are a part of you. They are a part of us. They're in our bellies for 9 months for many moms. And so, you know, when they are then in front of us, again, like with my first daughter, I had trouble bonding with her. And it was because I remember she was about 2 weeks old and my father in law was holding her. And I remember sitting in the room thinking, how is she over there? Like, she is part of me. So how is she over there? And so, yeah, there's this weird dynamic of they are a part of us. We create them, we make them, and yet we still have to be a whole person outside of them. And, you know, learning how to do that and learning how to model that for our kids too is so
Yeah.
important because, then, like, inside of my marriage, we were very codependent, which was part of our struggle. We have been together a long time. So we had a lot of bad habits to break. And so becoming more independent and becoming a whole complete person outside of my husband, outside of my children, I'm now modeling that for my kids. So hopefully when they go into relationships, they are now a whole and complete person. And this other relationship, like, just enhances them. It doesn't become a part of, I mean, not a part of them, but it doesn't make them.
Right.
It adds to them.
I can remember at some point someone that I knew called it being a two-headed monster. It's like you don't have an identity without your person, your
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I mean, that's part of what not just moms, but part of the whole podcast is about, like, you are a whole and complete person, and you, to be your best, is to be all of you and balanced, because then you do have all of that space and time and energy to put into all of these things that are important to you. And your children are going to be super important to you, right? So it's like, to be your best, you need to become the person who is the most awesomest.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. That's like,
No. Yeah, absolutely. Are you familiar with Ed Milet?
no.
So he's a big self-help guru,
I
but
can't believe I don't know this person.
he I enjoy his content, but he has children, and he talks about the best thing you can do for your kids is become the best version of yourself by not living out your dreams. You're teaching your kids to not go after a full life. And so by living out your dreams, by going after the big things, that's what you're showing your kids how to do. And of course, like, there are times where we need to make sacrifices for our kids, and there are times where we need to choose things for them over things for us. But I really feel like that's more setting the priority over the long-term big picture versus in the moment. So for 2 years, 2020 and 21, I was a stay-at-home mom. I put my career aside. I did a ton of healing in that time, but I knew I needed to show up for my family. And I knew that showing up for my family and for myself in that time was more important than going to find another job to financially support my family. Now, I'm really fortunate in the fact that my husband had a job that was able to support us in that time. Um, but you know that those moments of being home with them, being with my little one so that I could create that relationship with her. And then my relationship with my youngest has drastically impacted my relationship with my older kids. I'm a better mom. I'm showing up better. And so
Right.
I kind of had to figure out what is my priority right now to keep hustling and go make money so that we can go buy the new car, buy the new house, go on all these trips? Or is my priority really being present and connected with my kids, which is what I'm chasing with, the better house, the more trips. Oh, I'm doing all of those things with and for my family. But when I looked at it and really looked at, well, what is it that, I really want out of those things?
And I bet you if you asked your kids, they wouldn't care about a new house and a new car and a trip. Moreover, they wouldn't pick those things over spending time with you.
Right.
Right. And it's interesting. I was watching a speaker yesterday, Mel Abraham, and he does financial education. But he was talking about when he became a single dad, and I think his son was 6, and he worked for himself. He was an accountant. He was a CPA, and he was working his butt off because he said, I need to support this child and I need to look after this child. And he's my son and I want him to have the best. And he was working his butt off. And his son came home from school with a picture that he had drawn of him. Son was 6. He's like, look, Dad, I drew a picture of you. So he looked at it and it was a picture of 2 computer screens. He had a phone in each ear and there was a phone on the table ringing. And that was how he saw his dad. It's like,
Yeah.
that was his wake up call. So I do, like, parents always want the best for their children and you want the best of everything for them. But really, probably what they want, at least until they hit teenage years, is time with their parents and fun, right?
Yeah.
They don't
Well,
care about material things.
yeah, I have a toddler. She'll be 3 in 2 weeks, and then I also have a almost 13-year-old. So I am in the teen and toddler stage at the same time. So it's very interesting because they do. All they want is for you to show up and love them. They want you to have connection. My 12-year-old wants me to sit and be connected to her. Now, that means for her that we're going to Starbucks and I'm buying her coffee and we're sitting there talking about who knows what, makeup, her drama coming up with her drama club. And with my 3-year-old, that looks very different. It looks like reading books at the kitchen table while she's eating lunch with her teddy bear. And then my boys, they're in the middle. It looks like they want to play basketball outside and play a game of horse. And part of being a mom of 4 is learning how to connect with each of my kids in the way that they need and learning how to create the time intentionally to give that time to them,
Right.
which is a lot of energy that it needs to be put out. So if I'm not taking the time to feed into myself the energy that I need, if I'm not taking the time to figure out how do I best connect with myself, I'm never even thinking about how do I best connect with my kids. I don't have the time to think about how do I connect with my kids because I'm too busy in the day to day of, yep, we need to spend time together. Okay, great. Let's do this. Okay, we're here. Let's go there. Because that's a lot of what my life was. The next thing, the next thing.
Right.
Okay, we need to go out to dinner because that's going to be mommy and me time. Okay, we're at dinner. All right. Like my mind's going through the 15 million things that I should be doing at home and all of the laundry that's at home instead of being present with my kids in that moment.
Right. You're like, okay, let's just do it and tick it off the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you aren't looking after yourself, then you don't even have the energy to be present for them, right?
No.
And I was thinking, what was I just thinking? ticking off the to-do list. Oh my goodness, my brain. Sometimes the ideas flow through faster than I can grab them. People who listen know that I'll go, I thought of something. No, I didn't.
Oh, my brain works in a very similar way.
Right? The habits. So I was going way back to when you were talking about why you kept going back to your therapist and going, I keep doing it, I keep doing it. But it is a habitual way, like you have learned the way you've lived all your years in a certain way,
Hmm.
and then you realized that way that worked for a long time, whatever it is, like whatever it is,
Yep.
doesn't work anymore. So it's not like, although I know a coach who says you can change it overnight, but
Yes, and
he was a hypnotherapist. So,
uh-huh.
but short of hypnotizing yourself, even then, it doesn't always work. You need some time to create that new habit, right? And it
Yeah,
does take
and
practice.
like I said, my husband and I started dating in high school. And so I was 17 years old when we got together. I mean, we have a lot of life lived, and we were still figuring out who we were when we got together. And then we kind of started to create who we expected each other to be. And that's where a lot of the resentment built up. And so, yeah, it was then pulling all of those pieces apart and figuring out, because it was the same thing for him too. Like he had to figure out who he was outside of our relationship. And I had to allow him to then show me, oh, you don't want to do this thing, or this isn't really how you want to show up. Okay. And so it was creating a brand new narrative. And yeah, we come into these conversations so used to, I say one thing, he responds this way. I say like, and then we get into an argument and it's like, wait, one of us has to stop
Right.
showing up in the same way that we've always shown up and break that habit. And same thing with my kids too. I know there were a lot of things with my oldest that I struggled with. And there would be days where I would just walk away, close my eyes. Okay, I would go find my husband. I need you to calm me down before I go back and interact with her. And she would just get louder and bigger because she wasn't used to me walking away and getting quiet and calm. She was used to me engaging with her in her chaos, in her tantrum. And so she was like, wait, you left? Well, I must have to throw a bigger tantrum to get
Right.
her attention. And so then it took her a few months to figure out, oh, this has changed.
Right.
And so I was breaking my habit, but then I also had to allow her time to break hers and to learn new ways to come. And when she wasn't in that moment, have conversations about what do we do when we're in that moment? How can I support you in that moment when you're really angry that are better?
Right.
And having that conversation with her to listen to see what she could come up with.
And that'll help her as she gets older, like, and becomes an adult as well. Because if you learned getting a tantrum was a way to engage with people, then that's how you'll live your whole life.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
I know adults like that.
yes.
Right.
Yeah,
That doesn't work.
I tell her all the time, I'm happy to pay for your therapy. And she's like, I don't want to go to therapy. You say that now, but when you're an adult, you're going to be responsible for your own therapy. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that for a long time it was seen as like something bad,
yeah, the
right?
stigma. Well, so yeah, going back to when I had my third baby, I actually said to a couple people, I said at one point, I said, I think I need therapy. I think I need to see a therapist. And my mom at the time, again, very well meaning, was like, oh, well, maybe you can just pray more. And I was raised Catholic. My family is very religious, believes very strongly in faith. And at the time, I knew it wasn't helpful, but I also took on that piece of, oh, I don't need therapy. There's a stigma. Maybe I should pray. I don't know what I should do. And, so when I talked to my husband, he kind of was like, you're kind of always this way. Like, this just seems to be like how you are. Again, he meant well,
Yeah.
but it was not supportive or validating or any of the things that I really needed. And so that's actually how I ended up getting a life coach, because for me, the life coach, I had less stigma around starting with a life coach than I did around therapy. Um, and so I found a fantastic life coach who I started to work with. And then, 2020 happened, and
And they're
therapy
two.
also became covered by my insurance.
Oh,
So that was really helpful in
yeah.
starting therapy and initiating me going to therapy too. So, yeah.
Well, and it is interesting because sometimes people get confused. So, because therapy is, I mean, the easiest way I describe it is therapy is looking backwards and helping you figure out, so, like, untangle that. And then coaching is more looking forward and how can we help you find things to support you to get the things you want going forward. And I see, like, I think, I do know that for most people, the stigma of therapy is like, well, I'll go to a coach, but not a therapist. Well, whereas sometimes I've talked to people, I say, no, you don't need me right now. Come and see me after you've had therapy.
Right.
Right? I'm here for you, but I need you to do something else first.
Yeah.
And I can remember when my husband went to therapy, this was before we met. He actually did therapy before I met him, which, oh my gosh, I'll tell you, if you are looking for a man, get one who's already been through therapy. But
It's a good sign.
yeah, his I guess his mom said to him at the time, "Why? What's wrong with you?" It's like there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong. I
Yeah.
just I need some help to figure something out,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't go to a brain surgeon to fix your plumbing. I know that's a weird comparison, but if you
No,
need help to
and
sort out,
there's no, I mean, there are lots of books and lots of people, but there's no manual on how to, like, there's no book on how to live Heather's life. There's no book on how to live Steph's life. There's no instructions on this is what happens when you become a mom. And you have a baby, and they're like, 48 hours later, have a great life.
yeah, see ya.
Good luck. And we think that, oh, you'll just fall in love with this baby. It's such a magical thing to become a mom, and it is. And there are so many things that happen. And so asking and finding support is the most important thing I tell new moms. And ask and ask and ask for help until you get the help that you actually need. And don't
Right,
be afraid to ask someone else, because a lot of times we tend to ask the same people for the same things. So I kept asking my husband or my mom for the same things, and I wasn't getting what I needed. And I was getting mad and resentful. And finally, one of the conversations with my therapist, she was like, when are you going to stop asking them for something that they don't have to give you? I was
right.
like, oh, so it's my fault.
There's no blaming.
I'm the
There's no
problem.
blaming.
But right, like I have to stop asking for things from them. I have to go to my therapist or my coach for the support and the encouragement that I need in my business when things don't look like they're going the way I want them to go. I can't go to my husband. He has no idea. When I'm struggling as a mom emotionally, I can't go to my husband. I mean, I can, and he's now much more supportive and has better tools as well to support me, but he's not going to relate to the emotional and mental load that I have going on. I need to find another mom who I know is also doing the work and understands where I'm at, to hear me and know that I'm not calling her to tell her how terrible my kids are, how terrible my husband is. I just need somebody to listen to me so that I can get it out, process it, and then move forward.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything about them. It's just, I've got this thing. I need somebody to hold it for me so that we can then like move on.
Yeah,
And so that
absolutely.
was a big learning experiment and practice for me, because even then I would still call my husband, call my mom and say, I need this thing. And they're like, okay, well, here's this. I'm like, no. Oh, right. I called them asking for something that they don't have.
Right. Yes. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same answers, right?
Yes. Yes.
Sadly. That's amazing. And so you work with one-on-one with moms. Does it matter how old their kids are, or are you working like?
No, actually, I have a new client who is a mom, but is also a grandmom.
Wow.
She watches her toddler at her house a couple days a week. And so we're working together on a lot of the similar issues, right? I really love supporting women. I really relate to that motherhood role and aspect, but it's that it's that female mom idea that I
Right.
love supporting.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, that was lots, like, come on. That was a lot of really good stuff there, friends. But before you go, Steph, I
Mhm.
always ask, first of all, I'm going to let everybody know they can find your information in the show notes because they're going to want to find you. So remember, it's always in the show notes. If you can't find it, click around, look around. And if you really can't find it, DM me because I have the information. But before you go, I always ask, do you have any final words of wisdom for our peeps out here?
Yes, I'm going to reiterate what I said already.
That's
Ask for
okay.
help, ask for help, ask for help, and keep asking until you get the help you really need.
That's awesome. And that's true in all aspects of life,
Yes, that goes for
right?
everyone, everywhere, man,
All,
woman, child, adult, everyone. I say
everything.
that to my kids too, because that's a great lesson for them. If you don't understand, ask for help. If you're not sure, ask for help. Even if you think you've got it, but it doesn't feel right,
Ask.
ask for help.
That's beautiful. Yes, I'm a big fan of asking for help, and I did have to learn that one myself. So,
Yeah. We
even
deserve
though
the help.
we deserve help,
We're worthy and deserving of all of the help that is
even
out
though I avoided children, I still
there. You're still deserving and
I'm
worthy of
still
help.
worthy of help.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Steph. This has been so awesome, so
I've
great.
enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you having me on today. I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you. And yes, everyone, so connect with Steph, ask for help. And if you know a mom who you think you, even if you don't think she's struggling, she might be, send her the podcast because come on, she might not know she should ask for help. You need
Yes,
to just let her
every
know.
mom needs a little bit of support. Some are better at
Asking.
knowing that they're able to ask for it and that it's
Yeah,
out there.
absolutely. Okay, friends in podcast land, have yourself a great week.